girls, welcome to my first ever secret TBR video. I am so incredibly excited to put this video together and read all of these books because, as you can see by the title, I will be reading all Greek mythological themed books in this video. So I have 6 books to read for this video. Very ambitious, but I really wanted to go all out and do the damn thing. So we're just gonna jump right into it and discuss my TBR. I have Lifestyles of Gods and Monsters by Emily Robertson. This I won an Goodreads giveaway, which was just so great because, like, what are the odds of me not only winning a Goodreads giveaway but winning a book that basically is my entire brand. I have actually started this already. I am about 40 pages into this, so I will talk a little bit more about this after I'm done showing you guys what I'm reading. And then I also have the Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood. This is a retelling of the Iliad through Penelope, who is the wife of Odysseus's perspective. I said a retelling of the Iliad. I'm so stupid. This is a retelling of the Odyssey through Penelope's perspective, and Penelope is the wife of Odysseus. And I remember tweeting I wanted Madeline Miller to write a Penelope-centered book, and then I found out that Margaret Atwood, the author of The Handmaid's Tale, has written one, which blows my mind. I don't understand how nobody told me about this. Then we have The Immortals by Jordana Max Brodsky. This is the same author as The Wolf and the Whale, which I am currently reading and really loving. And I really like her writing style, so I looked up her author bio on Goodreads and found that she has a Greek mythological retelling-esque book. And this one's pretty big. It's like 430 pages, so it's pretty chunky. This one's probably going to be the one that takes me the longest to read. I really don't know anything about it. I assume that it's modern Greek gods in like a city urban setting, maybe New York. I'm not sure, but I'm really excited to find out. I've never heard anything about this, but I really love Jordana's writing in The Wolf and the Whale, so I'm hoping this will be a hidden gem. The rest of the books are ebooks or audiobooks. My first and only audiobook is Everneath by Brody Ashton. This I had to include because I knew while starting this video I had to read Hades and Persephone retelling. But gotta be honest, this is the one that I have least the expectations for. I have never read a good Hades and Persephone retelling. They're always just poorly written and cheesy and just not really even related to the source material. I'm going into this with very low expectations, but I knew I had to include one because everybody wants Hades and Persephone retelling myths, which, I mean, I get, but not really. I don't really understand the obsession with them as a couple entirely, but that's the one I'm going to read. Then I also have Galatea. Look at me being a Greek stan and not even knowing how to pronounce the names, but can you blame me? I hope not. This is a novella by Madeline Miller, which I didn't even know existed, so that is definitely getting read. That one is only like 50 pages, I think. Oh, it's only 30 pages. Okay, wow, that is very short. Finally, I have Wake Siren by Nina McLaughlin. Whew, that is an Irish name if I've ever dang near seen one. This I have also started, and I'm 60% into this one. It's gonna be a 5-star. I can already tell you this right now. This is a retelling of Ovid's Metamorphosis, so all of the myths in Metamorphosis, it is in here, and it's through a feminist lens. And if you guys know anything about my reading taste, I always rate feminist retelling of Greek myths 5 stars because they're very important to a very misogynistic culture and interpretations of those myths. So I always rate those 5 stars, and this one is no different. I can already tell it's going to be 5 stars. I honestly thought it was going to be my favorite read of the year. Like, better than Song of Achilles just because of its raw energy, but because it's a retelling of Metamorphosis, it's like short stories, so each chapter is about a different myth and all of those things, and I don't love as many myths as I do others, so obviously it can't beat out Song of Achilles. I am really enjoying this. This one is really hard to describe, and I feel like people just have to read it to really understand. It's written in a very casual manner and also poetic manner, and each chapter has a different kind of narrative style. It's very unique. I've never read anything like it before, and it's just so angry. It's extremely angry and cathartic. It's definitely not for everybody. Very poetic in a way that's also has like that narrative element to it, which I really love, and I think it's such a unique way to retell these myths because it still kind of holds true to the poetic nature of the Greek myths, but also bringing it to modern light. And it's very hard to read. Like, I started this, I don't know, like 2 months ago, and I still haven't finished it. Not because I don't love it, it's just a lot to read at once. But I will be finishing it in this video, obviously. But also this cover, beautiful. I'm ready to just freaking read, man. So let's just freaking read. Oh wait, before I do that, I wanted to update you guys on this. So this book is Hunger Games meets Keeping Up with the Kardashians. This is a retelling of the Labyrinth and the Minotaur and Theseus and all of that stuff in Ariadne, but it's set where there's this reality TV show, so this is kind of where the Hunger Games aspect comes in. And the Labyrinth contest, so if you know, there's like the every 7 years, 14 or 7 years, I think it's every 7 years, he demands 14 individuals from Athens, I think 7 girls and 7 boys. I could be making this up, I could be making the numbers up, but bottom line, he demands sacrifices from Athens to come to Crete to go into the Labyrinth, kind of as a sacrifice to the Minotaur, and if they can defeat the Labyrinth, which nobody's ever done, they get this really grand prize. I think they become the king or something like that. And, you know, Theseus comes in and he helps Ariadne, who is the princess of Crete, kills the Minotaur and blah blah blah, and then they get married, and then he betrays her, and then she marries Dionysus. It's a long-winded myth, but bottom line, that contest, that sacrifice is publicized and it's on this reality TV show, and the royal family of Crete are like these Kardashian royal family figures where they're constantly like in the paparazzi. It's really interesting. It's very unique. Never read anything about it. From what I can read, it's still set in like ancient times. They just have cameras and like reality TV, but like it's still Greek society and things like that. It's weird. It's definitely weird. But it's interesting, you know? Oh, 14 teens. Okay, so I was right. Man, look at me. I shouldn't doubt myself. I know what I'm talking about. Thoughts so far. The writing isn't great. It's definitely very mid-2000s-y. And the thing I really am annoyed by is that the main character, Ariadne, she calls her dad daddy every 5 seconds. Like, every single time the king of Crete is referenced, she calls him daddy. Which, I'm sorry. You are no longer allowed to call your dad daddy unless you are under 7 years old. You can't do that. It's just not allowed. I'm sorry, your daddy card is revoked. So that is just really throwing me off, and it's really taking me out of the story. I know that seems like such a little thing to be annoyed by, but it really is just not great. I'm not loving this, but I think the concept is unique enough where it could at least get a 3-star from me, but we'll see if this carries on. But I love the cover. I mean, I really do. Hi, so I am reading Lifestyles of Gods and Monsters, and this book is weird. It's just very random, just how the setting is just in this like technological based system, and just the fact that it's just this reality TV show of this family, and there's also the mythological elements. It's just bizarre. It really is. But I'm still entertained, but there are still really interesting themes in here. Like, a big one is obviously growing up in a family that is like the Kardashians. So you are on this reality TV show, you are used to having all of your movements and everything filmed, and you have like zero privacy. And Ariadne in this book, she is one of those characters who's kind of like steered away from that, not necessarily because she really can't steer away from it, but she is very introverted, wears like baggy clothes, and she doesn't do her makeup, and she doesn't like do her hair, so she tries her best to stay in the shadows, so the cameras don't really care, like they don't focus on her because she's boring. Right, they focus on her sisters, who are very glamorized, and they are very into the reality TV show plot lines of like the fake like romances and drama. But now, because Ariadne has caught the eye of Theseus, and they have this chemistry together, and she's like really into him. Now she is brought into this plot line of this reality show, and so now she's finally having to deal with being in the spotlight and not really having any choice in the matter. It's really interesting because obviously we can't know if this is how it really is growing up in a reality TV show kind of atmosphere, but it seems to be kind of realistic how it would be. It's just a really interesting and kind of sad dynamic where she's telling her family, and she's telling her dad and her mom and her sisters and her best friend and everybody who is very heavily involved in this TV show, she's telling them that she doesn't want to do this, like she doesn't want to be involved in this, and they're telling her she doesn't have a choice. There's also the really big dynamic of using the gods as an excuse for bad things happening and just an excuse for just awful behavior, which I think is a really interesting theme that is kind of hinted at and just referred to constantly. Like, for instance, there's a scene where Ariadne is with the Minotaur, because in mythology she is very close to the Minotaur, who is her brother, and she has a lot of sympathy for him, and in this one she takes care of him, and she's like the keeper of the maze, that's what they call her, and the Minotaur likes her to tell him stories and him myths, and every single time she reads one to him, he's always like, why does this happen, like why did they do this, why did this person kill this person, why did this monster, whatever. And Ariadne is always like, I never know how to answer the whys, and the whys of myths is always hard, and so the answer that I always end up giving is the gods, because the gods wanted that to happen. And there's another instance where this is happening, which I just read, where Ariadne's mother is talking to her about how Eros has never really touched her the way that he's touched Ariadne, because now she's like really into Theseus. And Ariadne's like, oh really? What about the bull? And her mom is like, I can see your judgment. And she says, you disapprove. I ask you, Ariadne, how could I have been wrong when the gods made it so? And that just like kind of sent shivers down my spine, because it's scary, like that mentality of just like using the gods as an excuse to do horrific things, like, you know, fucking a bull, and then she can justify that by saying, oh no, the gods that's just what the gods intended, I had no choice in the matter. And it just, it's kind of just creepy, and I really like how that element is brought in, because I'm hoping that like the gods never really make an appearance in this, like the gods themselves, because that would just make that element all the more juicy to me. I don't know. It's just, I kind of been liking this. Like the writing itself isn't the best, and the whole setting is bizarre. And the whole theme is just bizarre. The concept, everything's bizarre. But I'm kind of entertained. Hello! So, I finished Lifestyles of Gods and Monsters. First day, already finished a book. I'm on a roll. going to give this 3 stars. The beginning of it was definitely a strong 2. But you know what? I think it deserves a 3. I think this examines such interesting themes in an interesting way. Again, bizarre. Never read anything like this, but the fact that this deals with mythology through a reality television lens, I was reading the author's note and it says that she was inspired, like she's always been into Greek mythology, but then she's also been interested in like reality TV, and she started thinking that how did like the Greeks learn about Pasiphae and the bull? What was the mythological paparazzi like that back then? And that's how she kind of came up with the story. And I don't know, I think that's a very interesting take on mythology. This is also quite mature. It's very sexual. There's no like sex scenes, but it's just very exploitive. Will I necessarily recommend this? Maybe not, but if you are interested in mythology and this plot kind of sounds interesting, it really is Keeping Up with the Kardashians meets the Hunger Games. Like, that's really the best way to describe how this book is. I don't like how Dionysus is portrayed in here. He's only in the last chapter, but that was kind of weak. So I didn't like that. But that's only because I love Ariadne and Dionysus, and this obviously isn't about Ariadne and Dionysus, but I'm glad he was in the last chapter, but it just kind of was pointless to have him in there because it was totally irrelevant to who his character was. Not mad that I read it, and it was interesting. So I literally just read the introduction of this, and I'm already obsessed. I am so excited for this. No matter how many times I read these tragedies and know what happens in these myths, it doesn't matter because it's still always so freaking sad and so tragic when things just happen, but that's life, man. I just finished this and it was 5 out of 5 stars. Hands down. Absolutely a masterpiece. Incredible. I will talk more about it tomorrow when I have more energy, but I just... wow. Hello you guys, it has been a bit since I have updated you guys because I am lazy, a procrastinator, and the worst. I finished a book since talking to you guys, and I DNF'd a book. Let's get to it. The book I finished was the Penelopiad. This I gave 5 out of 5 stars. It was just an utter masterpiece. This is basically a biography on Penelope, who is the wife of Odysseus. It talks about her parentage, how she grew up, and then it goes into the marriage between her and Odysseus, the time where he goes to war, and what happens when he comes back. And a big part about this is also looking into the 12 maidens that Odysseus has killed after he comes back to Ithaca. He thought that they were complacent in the like treasonous acts of the suitors and all that stuff. So it's a look into them and their like untold story and untold vengeance. And it was just really, really good. It was just told exactly how I would want this to be told. This has very similar tone and like voice to Wake Siren by Nina McLaughlin, which I mentioned also at the beginning of this, which I still haven't finished yet, but I'm almost done with that, where Penelope she's like very candid, very conversationalist in the way she's telling her story. And there's also a point where the maidens are the chorus. So if you've ever read like a play or anything, you know that the chorus are like the people that are kind of narrating out, and the maidens are the chorus in here. So you get kind of some poetic parts of this too, and it's really short, but I think it did exactly what it needed to. I was watching some reviews, I was reading some reviews about this of the people that didn't really enjoy it, and a lot of people say that they wish it was more of like a retelling and like it dig deeper and it was longer and it kind of showed more, but I really don't think that was needed, especially because, I mean, this is the Odyssey we're talking about. Like, does Margaret Atwood really need to retell the Odyssey? I mean, that's a long-ass book that we've all studied in school, that we all know about. I really don't think that's needed. Like, even if you don't know the Odyssey and going into this, you would still enjoy it, I think. I mean, you might be a little confused if you don't know absolutely anything about it. I just think Penelope is just such an interesting character, and I really love Margaret Atwood's interpretation of her. I absolutely adored this. I really did. I thought it was brilliant, and her writing is just so good. She's just such a good writer. The book I DNF'd was Everneath by Brody Ashton. It was bad. Like, it's bad. It's, you know, early mid-2000s YA. It's toxic relationship bad boy versus the quarterback football player. Like, it's not good. It's not good. So I don't think I really need to explain why it's not good. So I'm reading the Immortals, and this dude really just cried out, Holy Roman Empire. Not, oh my god, not holy shit, Holy Roman Empire. Alright, so I've read a couple chapters of The Immortals, and now that I've read a couple chapters of this, I can properly give a synopsis of this book. So we seem to be following either like a reincarnation or some kind of version of Artemis, the goddess of the moon, but now she goes by Selene, and she is this private investigator who helps out women in troubling situations or something like along those lines. So she is a protector for these women in New York City, and from what I can tell, it seems that most of the gods are dead and gone, and they're not powerful anymore. Like, Selene herself is basically mortal. Like, she doesn't have any of her powers anymore because nobody worships the gods anymore and all of these things. But all of a sudden there was this murder that looks to be like an ancient Greek cult ritual, and so now she is going on and investigating the murder that went on, and it's also involved with this like classicist guy who was the murder victim's like boyfriend or whatever. So it seems to be a like ancient Greek cult murder mystery featuring a Greek goddess, and I am really enjoying that concept so far. I'm also really excited about like the classicist goddess, the most brilliant romance pairing I could ever think of, and I'm so mad at myself for never thinking about that because that sounds like a fantastic time. I'm not crazy about like the execution of it so far, not as fleshed out as I want it to be, but I think the concept is so intriguing, so I'm really hoping I enjoy it as we go on and I continue to have a great time reading this, because I think the potential for this is very strong. So, quick update on this. This is classicist porn. Straight up, there are so many mythological references and classic play references, and just, it's full of Greek shit. And not even on like a fun kind of storytelling basis, on a whole ass like educational basis. If you are not into Greek myth, if you are not into you know, ancient Greece as a society and how it works and culture and things like that, you are not going to like this. But if you are a person who does like to study ancient Greece and ancient Rome, and you like to have like the history aspect of it in addition to like the myths and the actual stories of the society, I think you would really like this. But yeah, if this is not for the faint of heart, it's not for someone who just kind of likes mythology and stuff, because I could see people being very, very bored with this, because it's kind of dense. It's not super dense, like it's still easy to read. It's a lot. It's very like educational. This is told in dual perspectives. One of them is Selene, who is of course the goddess of the moon and all that stuff, and then the other is this classicist professor guy, so his chapters are just very knowledge heavy. So if you're not into that, yeah, that's definitely probably my biggest thing to caution people with. In addition to that, I'm one of those people who, you know, I'm studying to probably become a classicist, and this is just very slow. It's not even like the fact that it has just a lot of information in it. It's just slow. It's really, like, it's taking me a bit to really get vested in the story. Like, I'm intrigued by it. I'm, like, enjoying how it's going. It's just, I need it to pick up more, and it's just not gripping me as much as I really need it to. So another thing about this book is it's not entirely making sense, the world building of the gods in this, because in present day, apparently most of the gods have died, they've passed on, because, you know, nobody's worshipping them. At least at the beginning, it seems that Selene / Artemis is one of the only gods that's still living, but then we find out that Apollo is still alive, and he's doing way better than even she is. And then we find out that all of the Olympians seem to be alive, but Hestia is the one Olympian that's kind of a little iffy in her lifespan. So, okay, I guess the Olympians are the ones that are able to sustain themselves. But then we learn that Leto, who is Artemis and Apollo's mother, is still alive. Granted, she's almost dead, but how is it that Leto, who isn't even a goddess, is still managed to be alive, but like the muses and all of the other beings aren't alive? It doesn't really make all that much sense. So that's another thing where I'm like, I don't understand the rules as to their power and like how they are able to sustain themselves, because it's not really making much sense. Artemis murdered Alexander Hamilton, so if that's the alternate history you're looking for, look no further. Alright, so I'm halfway through the Immortals, and I'm really just not feeling it, and I don't know why, because everything about this sounds right up my alley. I mean, it's like a murder mystery featuring Greek gods and like ancient Greece and all of those things, and it sounds so interesting, the fact that these murders are centered around ancient Greek cults and stuff like that. It's just, I'm not invested in it, and I think it's probably because I'm just not latching on to Selene, our main character. I'm not a fan of how her character is, and it's really hard to describe. I'm just not a fan of the fact that she's like this ancient goddess, but she just doesn't seem to have much of a personality or very much like wisdom. There's a lot about how she doesn't remember everything about being a goddess, which I mean makes sense because that's thousands and thousands of years to be living, but like she just doesn't seem have much substance to her despite being this old ass goddess, you know? And she isn't powerful anymore. She's basically mortal, which that's kind of the whole point of the plot, so that's more of a preference thing, I guess, but I'm just not buying it, you know? And like we've met a couple other gods as well, and I guess it's just not how I would have gone about this story. And also the mystery aspect, it's just so slow, and it's like just not, it's not gripping me at all, and it's kind of disappointing because like there was so much potential with this, and I'm hoping the second half is going to be better and it's going to be more interesting. I just finished The Immortals by Georgina Max Brodsky. Let's discuss. My biggest gripe with this book was just the execution of it. I think the author had very ambitious goals and she wanted to do a lot of things, and I do commend her for that because I believe this is her debut novel. The main thing that I found was lacking was the rules in which the gods lived by, in a sense of like the scope of their power, the scope of what they were able to do, why some gods are lesser than others. So basically the foundation of the world building in this, I was just never sure what the gods were able to do and why some gods were able to do some things more than others. Another thing is I was so looking forward to the romance between like the classicist and the goddess, but the characters did not have chemistry together. That also has to do with just the lack, which leads me to my next point on the shittiness of Artemis / Selene. I have never read about a character who least represents Artemis in any way. She was so ignorant to everything. Like, she didn't have any knowledge of like Greek society and Greek life and like the mysteries and the cults, and the classicist dude was always the one talking to and like telling her how it was, and I'm like, bitch, weren't you there? Apparently they don't remember their past selves, but then you would get plenty of instances where there would be flashbacks to her relationship with Orion, and honestly that was the main flashbacks we got. So the goddess of virginity apparently only remembers the one time that she wanted to get her cheeks clapped. I don't understand how she was so dumb and never knew what was happening and never knew what was going on, and she needed the dude to tell her. Big part of Artemis is she doesn't like men, and this whole book she was just talking about men. My favorite thing about this book was just the sheer amount of Greekness. A lot of actual concrete knowledge in this about ancient Greek religion, society, and culture, and obviously I fucking loved that. All of that ranting, I did give this a 3-star. It probably deserves more of a 2.5, but because of the amount that this applies to my own brand, I think it deserves a 3 stars. All I have to read is Wake Siren. Holy fuck, you guys. I just read Thetis' chapter, who is the mother of Achilles, and this book, I don't know how to describe this damn book because it is so powerful, and I know I probably sound very dramatic, but I cannot articulate how gut-wrenching and revolutionary this book is in what it is doing, and I am just in awe of it. Alright, so I just finished Wake Siren. Wow. This book is the hardest thing that I have ever read in my life, just in content-wise. This is just the pinnacle of what I love about feminist Greek retellings. These pieces of literature are just so revolutionary, and I know I sound like a huge nerd talking about this and being so passionate about this, but I just can't help it. We are just so lucky to have authors like Nina and Madeline Miller and Margaret Atwood who are taking these 1,000-year-old stories and giving voice to a different perspective that in our world still continues to be demeaned and to be ignored and to be shitted on, you know? But I will say a drawback to this book is the lack of accessibility with this. One, it's written very strangely, so I do recommend maybe getting it from your library or looking up like the Google preview of this book. Another thing is, if you don't know anything about Greek mythology, you are going to be completely lost and not understand what was happening. I definitely think that this book is not for everybody. If you do have somewhat of knowledge, or you don't mind like looking up some of the characters before reading their chapters, I cannot recommend this enough. So now I think I'm just gonna go over my ranking of these books. Definitely Wake Siren was my favorite read of this project. My second pick is definitely gonna go to the Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood. It was just brilliant. My third pick is going to go to Galatea by Madeline Miller. I didn't talk about this in this vlog just because it was only 30 pages. If you love Madeline Miller's writing and her storytelling, I would still recommend it, and it's still a lovely short story. It's just, I wish it was much longer. My fourth pick is gonna go to Lifestyles of Gods and Monsters. This one was super weird, but it was very entertaining, and so I think it deserves to be on the fourth place list. It was a ride. My last place is going to go to The Immortals, which unfortunately was the one that I was most excited about. Of course, there is the sixth place, which is Everneath by Brody Ashton, but I didn't finish that one. That one was a DNF, so I didn't want to put it in the ranking. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a really fun time exploring some of these Greek mythological retellings. If you liked this video, leave a like and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any more mytHOEology videos in the future. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!